Yes, the top seed will get those 100 points. They already have their ticket punched to World Finals, but the rest of those points are critically important. Of course, we also have an eye on throughout this as well. So a lot on the line today, Josh. This is our second golden ticket event of the season, and I know I'm pretty excited to get to the action here fairly soon. Although we have a couple more things to show you before we get into our gameplay with both best of threes and best of fives today. How do we get to this part? Well, we began in the group stage. Our multiple groups of 8 and those top 3 making it through to the next round. You can see our guys who were able to get that first round bye in Ruben, Arden, Mohamed Light, and Aslan. But as we also saw yesterday, Josh, that first round bye did not always result in being first in this competition.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and a lot of it speaks to just how difficult some of those groups are. If we take a look at Group A and Group B, I mean, I really do believe if you were to win that, you should deserve a second round bye as well. Those were difficult, very difficult. And yeah, I mean, we saw it with Ruben. He was able to finish first, and then it just didn't matter. It's almost like he was given too much confidence, maybe. That's definitely something that has to run through your mind.
And seeing some of the people who have had a great day in day number 1, we had a matchup for Mohamed Light and Mugi. Mugi still alive. We'll be facing Arden Toas later today. Sandbox and Aslan down in that lower bracket, surviving their initial elimination matches, but all eyes on that upper bracket where we have, in this one, by the way, all 8 of our players, Josh, are former world finalists, whether they did it in teams format or in solo format. Everyone here has played on the big stage, and I know I'm watching very carefully when we get into those upper bracket semifinals where one of last year's breakout stars, Sub, takes on his countryman and multiple-time world finalist Lucas, and then the 2-time Mohamed Light will go up against one of the classic old-school players from Fav Gaming in Katashio.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this all. Mohamed Light, we all know how talented he is. I mean, you could just list a big number, and that's probably the number that he's won the monthly finals. I think it's 10, it could be 13, it could be 25. I think this is like the first year that he's not just already storming out to a huge lead on the points leaderboard, because Ian was up there. And look, I mean, today is going to be a beautiful day. It's so nice to be able to commentate on a championship Sunday.
Yeah, it's absolutely the best. This is what we're all here for. And of course, those of you watching at home, make sure if you haven't already, like and subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the rest of our Clash Royale League action all the way from here into World Finals. And stay tuned throughout this broadcast, as we mentioned top of the show, special drops right here throughout our day, a chance for you to get in-game rewards for being a part of Clash Royale League. And 2 players who want to stay a part of Clash Royale League today, Josh, our opening matchup between Sandbox and Aslan.
Yeah, absolutely. Sandbox, he's just one of my favorite players of all time. The way he plays RG, the way he controls the map, I think he is absolutely so brilliant, and I love seeing him just in person. His fits are incredible, and there you go, just swagged out right now, and he's got goat on his sleeve. Is that of another player or of himself? We're going to find out today.
Well, we know Sandbox is always a gamer, someone who's been in the mix consistently, and you know, he's someone who actually, if you talk to him, who kind of vacillates between an unbelievable level of confidence and those moments of indecision, those moments of maybe feeling like we all have it, imposter syndrome here on those days. The question is, which version of Sandbox shows up today? Is it that one who believes he has the ability to be the best, or is that one who has those little bits of doubts? And across from him, Aslan, you know, you talk about the fan base behind Aslan. You know, it's the same people who are always in the chat saying, hey, is Siak playing today? Aslan's one of those guys who's made the world final stage, and you have to believe that the fans behind him really are looking for him to capitalize on these opportunities today.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw him yesterday pull out this Tesla drill Goblin Demolisher deck, and he had so much success with that. I don't really like to advocate for repeating decks, but the way he played it, I really wouldn't mind seeing that. And Sandbox already it's like he heard me and he wants to just make me happy, and that's exactly what he's doing, pulling up the RG in game number 1.
Quick connection to start things off with the Royal Giant, as he gets a little work on the right-hand side. First minute away, 27.45 to 29.94 damage courtesy of Sandbox. You know, Josh, you were talking about the skill of Sandbox with Royal Giant. As we see Aslan go lava, as we've seen him go many times before, what is it about Sandbox's Royal Giant play or play style that leads to success?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just, it's the same thing with Ruben. They have such an intense understanding of the macro and how you're supposed to play every situation. When other players are going to struggle to figure out, oh, do I pop the monk right here? Do I wait 3 seconds? Sandbox has it drilled into his head. Okay, when the hunter is on this exact tile, I need to make sure that the monk is protecting it so that way he can't get value with this spell. There are just so many little interactions, and it's very clear that he's dedicated to his craft when he plays the RG.
And, you know, Josh, you and I were talking about this, of how much will we see Clash Royale's newest card in the game today. And, you know, you expressed a little skepticism after seeing it yesterday, but here we are coming out in the lava deck for Aslan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very fun card. Do not get me wrong. I absolutely do love that card. But we're seeing right here, it just feels like he doesn't really have the correct DPS. Aslan struggling a lot. That is an Evo RG on top of the tower. It's going to get at least another shot. It absolutely does. Is he going to put the lava in front? No. We're going to see a reset and the lava going in on the left lane. The Sandbox, I feel like he might. This just feels like another RG opportunity. Instead, he's going to elect to go Hunter and then Monk in front, trying to protect it.
Final 30 seconds and a little bit less in the quarter. And you see some of that Eagle Hunter getting into its work. Lava Hound getting in pretty deep as the curse doesn't quite clear off the Hunter. That is a couple elixir spent that did not do its job whatsoever. RG should turn, doesn't get one shot. No, the Eagle Valve does just enough to defend. And we will get some sudden death overtime to Aslan Sandbox.
Aslan trying to create pressure going in with the miner. I mean, this plus the Goblin spell, it's going to be able to do a little bit of work, but we're just going to see a beautiful monk activation. Defends everything beautifully. He's only taking 500 damage on the left, 300 damage on the right, and now we have another monk in tow, not going to be able to pop the ability. But Aslan, I mean, the Goblin Hut, I don't love that placement. I think it's going to be too easy for him to get spell value, and we see that just needs to cycle to a fireball, and we're going to see game 1 go to Sandbox.
Monk will hold, Fish Boy will go out and work on the miner, and as you said, Sandbox just a little cycle away. Aslan knows it's already over. GG, well played. Game 1 for Sandbox, barely broke a sweat.
Yeah, and I really think had Aslan gone with my idea, maybe the Tesla drill plus Goblin Demolisher, that might have been able to fare well. But the thing is, Sandbox is just so good, so dedicated, that it's hard to bet against Sandbox when he's running RG.
Great job out of Sandbox here. And, you know, we saw maybe one decent defense able to kind of stop the bleeding. But it also felt like Aslan was never able to put together anything that mounted to a real push, right? We never saw the Lava Hound and the Miner working in tandem. We never saw anything kind of getting behind the Lava Hound. Was this just going to be a rough going for Aslan all the way out, or was there something else he could have done to make this a more competitive game?
You know, I think he tried a lot of different things. He tried pairing the Goblin spell. He tried getting the Miner all the way in the back to make sure that the Hunter is targeted where only some of the bullets are even hitting it. I think he did everything that he possibly could. It's very difficult to get through a Hunter deck when you don't have a big spell and you don't have any pressure. He didn't have the Loon. The Spirit Empress is just a little bit too much elixir when you're trying to use those control lava styles. So I really do want to chalk it up as a matchup problem rather than any sort of gameplay problem.
Oh, speaking of spells, you mentioned no big spells. The two in the deck for Aslan in game number one, the Evo Lightning and the Goblin Curse. Fireball and Log, more traditional look outside of Sandbox. And, we are only in the best of three. Of course, best of fives coming in later today, but it certainly does preserve options. With the Zap out and with the Goblin Curse gone, which, as I mentioned before, not a ton of other places that you are concerned about. When we look at the Log and Fireball, anything that's in Aslan's deck pool that you think suddenly opens up, and there we go, we see opening up the Skellies.
Yeah, he does have the drill and he does have the mortar. He plays both of those beautifully, so I wouldn't mind seeing either of those. Instead, electing to maybe go bridge spam, we're still gonna have to see a few more cards out of him, and it could honestly be RG. And he might have just kind of taken the concept of Sandbox's game number one and used it himself for game number two.
Barb Barrel, Oil Ghost, very quick cycle. And there we go, fast cycle RG for Aslan. And, Josh, we've both been in this league for a long time in our various ways, and it's interesting to see the evolution of Royal Giant, especially when you actually add in the evolution to it, where the Evo or all the Royal Giant decks were so heavy, so thick with 3 and 4 elixir cards in the order versions, right? RG Lightning, Lumberjack or Guards, Baby Dragon, right? A very thick version of Royal Giant versus now the Royal Giant decks tend to be faster like this one.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely just the evolution of the skill of the players inside Clash Royale. Before, we didn't really know how to build proper decks, so we're seeing, Inferno Tower or something on defense when really they should be using the cannon and then cycling properly. A lot of it is just players are so skilled right now, they want to make as many decisions as possible to allow themselves to outplay. And we used to not see that. It used to, we tried to build as heavy a deck as possible so that way we don't have to make 14 decisions throughout an entire game. It used to be a lot easier.
Well, luckily for you, you're in the commentator booth now. So a little bit different job. Barb Barrel goes out. Will Evo Royal Giant get a shot? And it doesn't. So a little damage on the left-hand side as we get into double elixir time. Done earlier by Aslan, but Sandbox holding. Now when you're looking at the counters for Aslan between the Skellies, the Barb Barrel, the Ghost, and the Hunter, it feels like he does have a lot of options to control the drill, especially given that this is a regular drill, not Evo.
Yeah, he absolutely has a ton of options, and I mean, really, Sandbox is looking to get, two, maybe even one. He's trying to get 2 good offensive pushes, and then the rest of his damage is just going to be poison. He's going to wait till Aslan gets something out of cycle. We see a beautiful Evo Snowball, but even as beautiful as it is, it's still only getting 200 chip damage worth of HP. So it's going to be a very long, arduous game that we're going to see right here, but it's still anybody's match so far.
And we did see the Demolisher make the connection on the right-hand side, so Sandbox with the lead as we go into sudden death overtime. 21-73 to 20-38. Not enough elixir for Lightning on Aslan's side. And able to hold is Sandbox as we go into the final 90.
Yeah, another beautiful defense right there. And it's so interesting to see how he's defending it. Usually we see the quickest cycle possible, so we see the skeletons. But instead with the goblins on defense against even these Evo RGs, he's still defending them very nicely. It's an interesting interaction that we don't get to see where you're placing these small, weak troops on top of the Evo RG, and they're still getting their value.
17-18. Sandbox continues to chip away, looking to try to make this a quick one to open up our contest today. And continues as the poisons get good value on both the Ghost, the Hunter, and the Tower. Triple spell, I didn't call it out earlier, Josh, and the triple spell here was a little bit interesting, and it is working out wonderfully.
Yeah, and finally, Aslan, now that we're hitting triple elixir, he's able to cycle his RGs. He's able to put some sort of offensive pressure on top of him. But Sandbox, I mean, he's got the drill, he's got the Tesla, he's got every answer that you could possibly have. And this is just too tough for Aslan. He's now going to be able to spell cycle, and I think we're going to see sweep.
Yeah, and you just saw a big breath out of Aslan as he knows the lay of the land now. Does not get the RG shot, the Tesla there, just in time. And Sandbox going to kick off our day with a clean 2-0 and a really stalwart performance at the end to prevent the Royal Giants from connecting in triple elixir. And we also go ahead and get a
pretty fun Prince celebration, one that's become almost a meme now.
That's right, and yeah, I mean, it was just absolute perfection coming in from Sandbox. It's so nice to be able to just look over an entire set, and this really goes to both players. But there weren't any huge mistakes. Like Sandbox would have the Evo snowballing cycle, but then Ozon was able to quickly protect with Skellies on top, with the Hunter, with just any sort of response. It was just kind of, I mean, it's just one of those things where you have a 60-40 matchup, you play the same level of, and you kind of just win because of that. Sandbox just had two solid enough matchups, and he played them to near perfection.
And a couple of things we saw out of Sandbox that I really liked, especially playing in this Royal Giant matchup, the alternating of drill between offense and defense. And of course, you have to have the freedom to be able to play drill on defense and not need to be playing catch up on your damage to make that happen. Got enough of a gap to be able to use that drill. We saw it, especially there at the end, to shut down some of those final Royal Giant pushes and have not one, sometimes even getting close to 3 buildings on the board with the cycle at once. But then the other one, too, that is a little underrated, I think, and you think about the snowball, and it's having no knockback ability against a troop like the Royal Giant. We saw the use of the snowball just to slow down the RG in a couple of situations, and that is just good awareness, not panicking out of a veteran player like Sandbox, who now is going to be moving on in the lower bracket. Aslan eliminated in the top 8. We'll get some cash, we'll get some points, but we'll not get a shot at a golden ticket or at a silver ticket today. Gone in 8th place, or tied for 7th, depending on how you want to put it. And Sandbox will be moving on and awaiting someone to drop down from those semifinals, and no matter who he gets, it's going to be a tough out. But Sandbox now one step closer to a great lower bracket run. And Josh, coming up next, we're going to have Arden Toas and Mugi. So we go from one of our favorite veterans to, a long time. It's weird now to think about it. Mugi, a 2-time world champion.
I still kind of, in my mind, since he made his debut late in the Teams era, think of him as a later era player. And then Arden Toas, who is now a multiple-time world champion, who, so I guess maybe for you, Josh, you can speak to this, but in some ways also feels like a newer player, even though he is now a seasoned veteran as well.
Yeah, Arden Toas, though, that's the guy where he can feel kind of like a younger player. And we saw it yesterday, and Rich and Andrew and Juicy were talking about it a lot, where we didn't really see that his emotions were in check. You could see the visceral, I'm not even going to try that. Yeah, okay, there you go, reactions on his face, and it's just, we want to see a calm, collected man. And then, even when he was getting wins, he wasn't even. Getting wins, he wasn't even. Wins, he wasn't even. Wins, he wasn't even.
On a live stage at one point, and then in 2023,
big wins under pressure, so we can find a way to recapture that. and do that here. Look, at the moment, he's in the exact same boat as the guy he's facing, Mugi. You win, you continue on, you lose, you go home. The question is, can you do that in your brain, not just do it on the board?
Yeah, and right here we take a look at the predictions. 85% going to Mugi, 15% going to Arden Toas. And that's not really indicative of their actual skill level. These players are very close to each other, but it's so hard not to root for Mugi. Mugi has been in the scene. He has dominated the scene for so long. We see all sorts of trophies in his background. And I mean, he's as talented as they come. We were so excited for his set against Muhammad Light earlier yesterday, and then we just saw a sweep. And I know he wants to make sure that he can get his revenge. I think even though they are close in skill level, I'm going to change my earlier answer. I do think it should be 85-15. I expect a win from Mugi today.
Well, let's jump right into it. Game number one of one of our 2 times. In fact, Josh, when we really break it down, in the solo era, we have only had 2 world champions over 4 years. 2 times Mugi, 2 times Muhammad Light. And I'm very curious to see if here in our 5th year of solo CRL, if we will actually have a 3rd world champion, or if it will just stay between these 2 guys.
Yeah, I feel like you have to assume there's going to be a new guy coming in sometime soon, but these 2 players, they are just so talented, and they're talented at different parts. We have Muhammad Light, who's obviously just absolutely incredible, knows every single sort of interaction you could possibly know. But then Mugi's kind of claim to fame is that he, like the world stage, that's where he wants to be at. He's more comfortable at the world stage than he is in his own bedroom. It's just crazy how these 2 players have such locks on the field.
Well, getting a little comfortable right now is Mugi, maybe a bit too comfortable, as he allows that connection. Arden Toas grabbing the lead, 26-22 to 24-84. And I have a feeling, Josh, that we're going to see a lot of this quick cycle RG.
Yeah, both the RG and the drill. It's just 2 constants within the meta when it comes to pro players. They love these type of decks. And right here, this is going to be big damage. Evo Snowball being forced out from Mugi, but that's still going to be a shot and an Evo away from Mugi. A great push for Arden Toes.
These 2 players did meet on the live stage at Clash Royale League World Finals in 2022, or 2023, after Arden beat Sosa and Mugi got the win over Adriel. They met in the upper bracket. It was a 2-0 sweep, knocking Arden down to the lower bracket, where he got wins over Lewis, and then eventually fell to Ruben in our top 8. Mugi, of course, that season went on to beat Air Surfer, and then take a loss to Pedro, and then fight his way back to win that championship. So Mugi loves to be at a stage in Clash Royale League where he is facing Arden Toas.
And right there, Evo Firecracker placed at the bridge, and this is going to be a pretty healthy push. The Evo Snowball, or the Evo Tesla plus the Snowball, it's not going to be enough so far, and with bar barrel, this RG is going to get onto tower. He is struggling right now. This could hit the bar plus the RG plus the light in game 1. Going to Arden Toes. Beautiful.
And just put all of that together to run right by Mugi there at the end. And I don't know what Arden is saying. I think maybe he's streaming at the same time as all of this. But maybe he looks like he has a bit of a cold. I don't know if he's, drinking an emergency or something, trying to get his vitamin C back up. Either way, Arden just put together a nasty downhill run, and there was nothing Mugi could do about that in that context. Josh, thoughts on the ending there of that game?
My thoughts on the ending is that it was just too easy for Arden Toes. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, it matters who wins it, but I'd like to see just stronger defense from Mugi. It felt like it was way too easy for him to get the right push. Whether I don't know what it is. I would have to rewatch that probably 3 or 4 times to figure out exactly where he messed up. But that was just way too easy for Arden to take the tower.
And Now with game number 1 in the books, Arden going to be hoping to
Turn the tables on Moogie after the 2-0 sweep he suffered in our 2023 World Finals. And you know, Josh, you're more dialed into the ladder scene as of late. And there was certainly a time where Moogie was consistently in the mix, one of the top players in the world for a long time. But I feel like I haven't seen him involved in that top ladder discussion as much as it happened in the past.
Yeah, I mean, we take a look at like 4 years ago, and that's when he was consistently, until somebody proves him wrong, until somebody proves to him, hey, you're gonna need to be grinding every single month in, month out. He gets a pass. Whatever he wants to do, he's allowed to do it.
Of course, he missed World Final last year. Smallest field with only 8. So we'll see if that puts him in a bit more of a fire under him for this one. Top 12 make it to World Finals this year, and I know that Josh, you and I are both pretty pumped about that format. And this is, by the way, your first CRL broadcast of the year. We were able to get you for the first golden ticket event. Just briefly, as we're waiting for game number 2, thoughts on this 12-player format with the first round buys for the top seeds for this World Finals?
Yeah, I love everything about it. I love there being a first round bye. I think that's so important to the health of any sort of competition. You've done all of this in the regular season. You have earned yourself just more money and a better position. And at the same time, I want to see as many players as possible. Yes, what was it, 2021, where we had like 32 players. And it felt like it was a 14-hour stream. It was still worth it. I love seeing as many players as possible to compete inside this game. Nothing makes me happier than just being a part of the Clash Royale esports community. So yeah, I love that there's 12 instead of 8, and do not allow me to be in charge of anything. Otherwise, it's going to be round of 256, and we cannot have that happen.
Well, Josh, looking at these decks as they get ready for game number 2, this is very similar to the game that we just saw played by Aslan. But the difference, I mean, there's slight differences in Arden Toes and his Royal Giant deck. What was the key factor, you feel like, that despite this matchup being very similar, made it so that Arden was able to get going so far downhill, whereas in the previous game, Sandbox was able to use a similar deck and shut down with that defense?
Well, it's definitely a collection of things, but I think the number one thing that I want to look at is just the Monk versus no. I think it was no champion whatsoever. The Ghost is great, yes, and that's why we saw Arctos use it game number 1. But I think you really do need that quick cycle. You do need that Monk. With no Monk, RG is nowhere near as threatening, and that's why Ardentoas had again, I think it was a little bit too easy for him, but that's his matchup every day of the week because he has the Monk in his deck.
Great log on that right-hand side, but Little Prince able to escape on the left from Arden. And so here we are in game number 2, Arden game in hand. And now opening up the lead by more than 300 HP as the boss hits the back of the field behind the
Yeah, the Boss Bandit is easily one of the scariest cards inside the entire game. It's so terrifying every single time it gets played. I just feel like there's a loss incoming, and honestly, so far it's been raining true. Usually I'm losing when that card is going against me.
Cleaned up here in the middle. You set me up great for a joke, Josh, but I decided to let all of that go. And instead we're going to reset as we get ready for double elixir, hog of the right-hand lane, order up the task.
Beautiful Spirit Goblins, and a really nice Earthquake as well. I like the idea. I think a lot of players have gone Earthquake on the same side because it just kind of makes sense right there, recognizing I can get a lot of chip damage on top of the tower and the troops. All I need to do is go the hog opposite lane, and there we go. We saw a lot of chip damage coming in from him. And this time, the Earthquake is going to be on the same side as the hog, and this is a massive push. A huge mistake coming in from Arden.
Wow, and 16:20 left on the right-hand side now after Hog, Q, and Evo Firecracker all connect. What did Arden do wrong there?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. There's obviously, we're seeing him defend kind of the exact same way every single time, and I wouldn't mind seeing him shake it up. He has a lot of opportunities to do these sorts of pushes with different troops to make sure that he can't Earthquake and get chip damage on top of the tower right there. Earthquake kind of placed him in an odd position. It felt like he could have placed it in the normal spot instead of electing to go just kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Maybe anticipating or trying to predict the high catch and Earthquake got high for that reason. Then still didn't get the tower damage. Hog doesn't connect, but Evo Firecracker, absolute snipe job, 610 on the right-hand side.
And right here, this is the push where Argento can protect his cannon. He won't be able to, so he's going to have to log on defense when he has the opportunity. Log in right now. This is a massive push. Arden trying to get himself back in the game, but once it gets down to triple elixir and you're going against the Hog EQ, you need to have the lead. They're going to cycle like crazy.
And order out of cycle, so Arden forced to defend and does get it done. Elixir fairly even. Firecracker, though, as she'll stay on the board, will give it advantage
To Moogie, 48 seconds left. Little Prince sets up defensive on the right-hand side. Order trying to attract Q's, get a connection on the left-hand lane. Fireball to clear. Order connects. Huge mortar connection. Log 3 trying to keep the goblins away from the Hog, and Hog will go a couple of hits and even this thing up at 1-1.
Yeah, Moogie, I would have liked to see the pre-log on the previous Hog. He allowed Arden to defend with the Goblin Gang plus the log, and I felt like that was a little too simple. It should have been very obvious with the mortar out of cycle, but he's able to do what he needed to do, got the win at the very end, and we're seeing our first game 3 of the day.
And I want to say, though, Arden did a great job of making that close. Got a couple of critical mortar connections and turned what looked like an absolute blowout after the sequence on the right-hand side that opened things up for Moogie, and ended up making sequence on the right-hand side that opened things up for Moogie, and ended up making sequence on the right-hand side that opened things up for Moogie, and ended up making sequence on the right-hand side that opened things up for Moogie, and ended up making sequence on the right-hand side that opened things and ended up making this one.
Use the mortar on offense every single time, forget using it on defense, and as soon as that happened, there was just a switch that got flipped, and it became a very close game. And something that I've always talked about for the last 5 or 6 years, all I want to see players do is give themselves a chance. Is there anything they could possibly do to maybe squeak out a win? Arden found that opening, gave himself a shot, but Mookie, obviously too talented to let that slide.
Here we go, game number 3 in this elimination matchup. And Moogie opts to go with bridge spam after going quick cycle for the first 2 games.
Moogie struggled with bridge spam going against Muhammad Light, got 3 crown in pretty much like a minute and a half. We're going to see if he's using the same version as he did yesterday, or if he's going to have some sort of response from the Inferno Guard. That's why he struggled last time.
Argento is trying to put a little extra juice on the right-hand side, not quite able to break through. Mama Pekka won't have much going for her, but the Electro Wizard behind will at least make things interesting. And Dagger Duchess for Argento. Yeah,
Beautiful ability. Beautiful ability right there from the boss bandit. Going to take out the battle ram and still have about 25% health. With the rage, trying to give him some sort of offensive position, but Moogie quick with the ghost and defends that properly.
Oh, and Arden has to eat this ghost shot too. That was 2 elixir. We'd love to have back. Eats some of the ghost, still finds himself behind on elixir. And of course, against bridge spam, that is possibly devastating. You know, looking at the situation here for Argento, you're playing
down deck. You're against P.E.K.K.A.
And Lumberjack, so two troops that can just absolutely melt that giant. And then, of course, the E-Wiz is there to contend with the Inferno Dragon. How are you feeling about the chances for Arden in this matchup?
Yeah, I think one thing that I really want to look at is that the P.E.K.K.A. isn't the evolution. I feel like if it was the evolution, that might help him. But because it's just a regular P.E.K.K.A., it makes me feel so much worse. I'm feeling absolutely fantastic if I'm
Lumberjack a little late to the party on that defense for the giant on the right-hand side. And Arden Toas pulling out to a lead, 1750, as that giant got quite a lot of work done on the right-hand side after Moogie cycled the P.E.K.K.A. on the left.
right there. Pretty big push, and no E-Wiz in cycle just yet. Does not have the elixir for it. Are we going to see?
Oh, boy.
Okay. Able to get the E-Wiz out just in time. It looked like Martin was going to be able to steal it, but instead, I mean, a massive advantage for him, and he's going to have another offensive push if he chooses to do so.
Moogie now going to get a battle ram at the bridge, just trying to maintain pressure up here. And would really love to get those daggers all the way out, so there's not much that can be done. He's starting to push. Lumberjack right up front, guards to hold. Boss Bandit will do some work, but now that Dagger Duchess is light, and Moogie putting this thing right back in contention. 13-26, Dagger Duchess still low. Evo Battle Ram on the board. Final 90 seconds, gets the one hit. Lead now for Moogie, 753, under 600, and that Duchess completely empty, running on fumes, about to crash into the mountain, and that is it. Moogie comes from behind and shuts it down against Arden Toas.
Wow, Arden Toas frustrated beyond belief. I cannot believe that Moogie was able to get the pressure going. I mean, just fantastic from him. Recognizes the Duchess is out of the daggers. Let's just put everything at the bridge. Hope that it works. And a sigh of relief from Moogie. I can't say I'm shocked. I'm doing the same thing, and I wasn't even playing.
Well, bridge spam, doing bridge spam things, and we saw, and I called out Dagger Duchess early on, and we kind of got into some other conversations, but I was looking at Dagger Duchess and going, this is the kind of deck that can create so much consistent pressure at the bridge. It's kind of in the name of the deck. And if that Dagger Duchess gets low, it's going to be really difficult for Arden Toas. To be fair, he did a great job of breaking out to an early lead, but man, the second that Moogie smelled blood in the water, he was on that like a shark.
Yeah, and a lot of that goes to the recognition from Moogie on just how to play the matchup when it comes to going against Dagger Duchess, but it really felt like he was cycling his troops in the way where eventually he was going to be able to overwhelm. He got the right cycle going. He got the Evil Battle Ram to be part of the finishing touch. I loved how he just set himself up properly. Everything with the matchup, it's only your matchup if you're going to play it right, and he played it to absolute perfection. And then on the other side, Arden Toas, that one push where he almost took everything, I just have to give... On the other side, Arden Toas, that one push where he almost took everything, just have to give so much...
Melt the giant, and got really opportunistic. The moment that Moogie cycled a P.E.K.K.A. in the back,
You saw that giant push on the right-hand side, and Arden starting to trying to take advantage of that opening, and he turned it back into the opposite lane and was able to put both the towers under pressure from Moogie early on, not sticking to the single lane, creating, as I said, pressure on both sides. But it's when that Dagger Duchess gets to empty, you better be near a gas station. And unfortunately for Arden, he was out in the desert with nothing in sight. So as we see our bracket fill in, we will say goodbye to our second competitor of the day. Arden Toas going to go out in our round of 8. And now we're down to our top 6 as Moogie and Sandbox both await the losers of our upper bracket semifinals. And that's going to be really fun to watch. Moogie will be facing off against the loser of Lucas and Sub, I believe, and Sandbox
against the loser of Mohammed and Katashian. So either way, we're going to have some really fun elimination level matchups. And now Mugi and Sandbox can just sit back and wait a little bit to see what comes up next. And obviously, on one side, I think that if you're Sandbox, you would rather be facing Katashian than Mohammed Light in an elimination matchup, and that's no shade to Kita, a great player. But let's take a look at the other side of the matchup that we're coming to here in a moment in Lucas and Sub. This is one that for many years I think that we would have easily said Lucas has the advantage here, but Sub has been one of, we talked about those players who've come from the semi-pro ranks up into being legitimate contenders over time. Wallace comes to mind, one of Lucas's former teammates, right? Sub is another guy who has turned into a legit player on the world stage.
Yeah, when I think of Sub, it's crazy. The first thing that I think of when I think of Sub is top 4. It just feels like whenever he's playing a tournament, he might not win them, and he might not even win them consistently, but he will be there. He will be fighting against the best players of the world. He will take a game and give himself an opportunity. He will finish top 4. I have been so impressed over the years thinking, okay, who is this guy? Well, okay, I recognize him. Okay, why is this guy always finishing so high? Oh, this is why. It's just beautiful what he's been able to do. I mean, it's just one of those heartwarming stories, and it's just nice to see him back in the top 6, right where he belongs.
Well, top 4 last year, and of course, second place finish last month in our first golden ticket event. Has a silver ticket already locked up to go to the last chance qualifier. So not exactly playing with house money today, but playing with a little bit more room. You know, he already does have at least a solid set in the points and that chance to go to the LCQ. So when you look at him versus you look at Lucas talking about consistency, a guy who was known initially as just kind of a hog player in, if you go back to kind of 2019 era, and then had a breakout year in 2020 in Clash Royale League, and then has since then been a consistent face at the top echelons of gameplay. How do you view the way that these two guys match up today?
Yeah, it's so tough. It is so much closer than the community prediction. I mean, 81%, it's just the power of the name versus somebody who's just talented and somehow not recognized by the community. These two players are so talented. And there we go. It's already changing. It definitely feels like Lucas should be the favorite, but I really think it's like 55-45 and probably even closer than that. These two players, nothing to scoff at. And the thing is, they're both good with just every type of meta deck that's going on right now. All the quick cycle, all the mortar, all the hog. These two players are so talented at those types of decks.
And you want to talk about how close these two are. Last year at World Finals, you're looking at the number 4 World Finals finisher in Sub for 2024 and the number 3 World Finals finisher
in Lucas, as these two met in the lower bracket semifinal. Lucas taking that one 2-0 in competition, running a bait deck, and then doing a little minor loon in game number 2 against the lava deck of Sub. So Lucas sticking to what is good for him in those fast cycle decks. Of course, the minor loon was an interesting variation for him. And then Sub sticking kind of heavy in that one, ran pigs like Royal Hogs, Queen, Earthquake, and then some Lava Hounds. So curious to see if we get a similar fast cycle versus medium heavy situation today out of Lucas and Sub.
Yeah, Lucas is one of those players where if you don't have your coach in your ear and you don't have the ability to workshop decks with them, make sure that you're counting everything, he's just one of the scariest players in the world. He's so smart, so talented, and he's just played so many games that it feels like he's always ready to do one thing different than every other player. He's not going to go crazy off meta, but he will choose one different card that's going to flip a matchup that it shouldn't flip. And that's definitely one of the specialties of Lucas. Is running Ninja. It's pretty interesting.
Just kind of the opposite, I was thinking. We have Sub going fast cycle with the Hog, and Lucas turning heavy, so both guys, especially Lucas, trying to subvert expectations. And speaking of expectations, everybody, on the left-hand side of your screen, rewards, watch them and unlock some other stuff. We're about halfway to our first reward drop of the day, so make sure you stick around to catch that one. And we'll have those throughout this Sun Championship Sunday for the Kalalis Cup here in CRL.
Sub trying to figure out his next move, going to cycle the Firecracker in the back. Lucas, he should have the Evo Cage in cycle. So when we take a look at the matchup, the E-Giant probably should have the NATO as well. This is interesting. Okay, is it NATO Lightning? Is that what we're thinking coming in from Lucas right here?
Only time will tell as we get into our double elixir, and Brawler might get one, and does. 27-15 on the right-hand side. Lucas narrowing the gap as he has the two-lane damage Hog into the left-hand side, Cage to cover. And that should, with the King Tower's help, yeah, it wasn't a perfect placement on the Cage, but activated King Tower cleans up the damage.
And right there, Sub doing a beautiful job of protecting his Firecracker. The Hog will not make it to the Crown Tower because it is going to activate the King with the NATO coming in from Lucas. But I mean, Sub's defense on that Firecracker, and then it's still plugging and chugging away. That was absolute perfection from him, and a well-deserved shot on top of the tower.
And that's now the most significant damage of the round, 25-52 plus a little chip on the Golden Knight. Bar barrel target the Firecracker. Hog goes left-hand lane for Sub as he plays defense on the right-hand side. Cage Evo to pick up and handle the Hog Rider. And the NATO pulls everything into the E-Giant, but not going to be enough to create a breakthrough. And Josh, now NATO out of cycle, no Cage. Hog going to get some big-time shots here. What does Lucas need to do to actually break through here and create some real damage on tower?
Yeah, the cannons coming in from Sub, it just feels like he's not really finding it difficult. A lot of the times, even when you see these easy wins, they're still making all sorts of plays. Sub, he's just kind of doing the same thing, and that's all that needs to happen. Lucas, I believe he just needs to kind of wait for triple elixir or wait for a mistake. And right there, the E-Giant making it to tower, getting it down to 21-19, almost evening it up. But now no NATO in cycle. This could be a pretty big push coming in right here.
EQ gonna help with that Cage. Hog gonna get two shots here down to 10:45. So just as Lucas sees some light at the end of the tunnel, the rocks start to fall from the walls with triple elixir against EQ cycle.
Yeah, Lucas just really struggling, trying to figure out how in the world he can just do anything. And so far, not coming to any sort of conclusion. We're going to see a NATO in, but these Firecrackers are still just staying alive. This is way too easy for them.
Evo Inferno in the back. Cage trying to hold. EQ getting the Hog through. 22:31 remaining, and now Lucas is trying to find some way to sell out of the bridge. Golden Knight gets some connections. 11 seconds left. No way to break through. EQ will just make sure the gap is enough. Log to clear, and Sub going to take game number one as the script is flipped from last year's World Finals. Sub going fast cycle. Lucas, the one cutting caught flat-footed with the beatdown neck.
Yeah, both players absolutely locked in. No celebration on either of their faces. They know how close they are in talent. Right there, I think we could just chalk it up to just a very poor matchup. Sub is way too talented with Hog to allow Lucas to do anything. And Lucas, on the other hand, while it was a bad matchup, I would have liked to see the NATOs be a little bit stronger. It was like 2, 3, maybe even 4 times where he NATO'd everything in, but when you're NATOing the Firecrackers, they're still going to shoot their way outside of the range. I would have liked to see something different, even if it's just cycling lightnings. There needed to be something different.
Well, unable to make anything different happen. And, you know, we were looking at
the defense there, and you were talking about the NATO. The problem in this matchup, it felt like for Lucas, was he had two good alternatives for defending against the Hogs with the Cage and the NATO. But with no ability to break through, he had to use the NATO offensively, and then that left him, as we saw, with a whole lot of openings for sub to just go, well, you used it, and now you just have Cage, and I have an Earthquake and a bunch more stuff to come and run downhill on you. And as you mentioned, of course, the Firecracker